Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to our mindfulness practice. Today's topic is about meeting your hero. So I just came back from a meditation retreat a little over a week ago, and that was a retreat with Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is, admittedly, especially after I saw him in person, someone that has really inspired me, and my life has changed because of following the teachings of Jon Kabat-Zinn. Jon Kabat-Zinn created mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is a 8-week intensive meditation program that if you were like me, you've never meditated before, you think of meditation as maybe some kind of woo-woo thing that New Age people do, that it's a way to open the door and to explore it in a neutral way. And I found that the benefit of mindfulness and meditation were extremely deep and profound, and affected my life in positive ways that I couldn't have imagined. And so meeting Jon Kabat-Zinn was a big experience for me. And I mentioned last time, when he entered the room, there was a kind of a heart fluttery feeling that I had, and like, oh wow, look, there he is. I'm seeing him in person, and what that felt like. And then to listen to his voice, right? To close my eyes and to hear the voice that had, through recordings, guided me so many times in my early meditation practice was a very strong experience, and a kind of coming home experience. Wow, this is how I got started. And then as the days of the retreat were unfolding, what Jon was doing was he was reading a bunch of the poems that I had just finished reading on our live events, right? He read Love After Love by Derek Walcott. He read Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye. And in fact, he didn't even read them. He had memorized them, and he read them, he spoke them word for word through memory. And that, that also made that experience special, because I was like, oh wow, maybe something silly. These kind of thoughts came through my mind. Oh, the universe meant for me to meet Jon in this time, because he's doing the same poems that I just finished doing on Insight Timer. And it wasn't limited to those two. There were a few more poems that he recited that were the poems that I had just finished going through. So I felt that was interesting, but very it reinforced that kind of connection, which is perfect, by the way, for the upcoming lesson that I was about to learn. And because I had put Jon Kabat-Zinn on this pedestal, there's a saying that says you should never meet your heroes. And I think the reason that this saying exists is because when you meet your heroes, you of course discover that they are human beings, and they, not unlike you, have human flaws. And that's really, that kind of, as we go through the days, I see that kind of illusion that I have of Jon Kabat-Zinn being this kind of perfect meditator, and the expectations that I had for him to crumble because of some of the things. And, the first thing was that when he recited Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye, she uses the word Indian in there. And when I recite that poem, right, I also use that word because this is the word that she's written. This, whether you agree with the use of this word or not, like, this is the word that she wrote when she wrote the poem. And Jon Kabat-Zinn changed that word to another word. And like I can, and so that was kind of the first thing that I felt didn't really jive with me. And I understand, I also don't use the word Indian to describe people, people who aren't from India. However, I wouldn't censor something and change, feel. I mean, Naomi Shihab Nye is the person that wrote that beautiful poem. And to think that I knew something that she didn't, to change that or to change it in some way, I just didn't. I don't think is my place to do, and I also didn't think it was Jon Kabat-Zinn's place to do at that time. So it was kind of the first thing that didn't jive so well with me, that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then, at another occasion, he talked a lot about having a love affair with the practice, which I get. I understand that. But, there was at some point in time that he picked up he picked up the cushion that he was sitting on, and he held it close to himself, and he started sucking his thumb. And that felt really strange and odd and awkward to me. And a bit later in that same evening, he started on a kind of a political rant and talking about things to be honest, I kind of prepared myself to encounter something in the States because of the upcoming election. But to be honest, I really didn't expect anything political from Jon Kabat-Zinn, and that's partially because I am an MBSR teacher. And I know how important the container that Jon Kabat-Zinn even mentioned, that, when we were there in the retreat, talked about the safe container of the retreat, that this retreat is, confidential. What we share here is confidential. What is shared in the container stays in the container, kind of thing. But I think what is really important, and I think is part of my MBSR teacher training, is that when I'm a meditation teacher, whatever personal opinions that I have, those need to be set aside in the spirit of the container and neutrality, to be rolling out the red carpet for all of you participants, as a teacher, to make this practice accessible as possible, and not to say that this is my way of thinking, and my way of thinking is the right way of thinking. And so John went on a maybe 5-10 minute political rant that was quite clearly left-leaning, which I expected, I guess. If I certainly wouldn't have expected Jon Kabat-Zinn to be right-leaning. He also, I know from his past, was a Vietnam activist. So this kind of political view is expected. However, when you speak those words out loud, in a room of 200 people, and just hearing some people that shared, makes me think that not all of those people are far left politically. And the kind of, I literally felt a physical kind of closing in my chest when that happened, when he started to share his political views. And I just felt sad for everyone that was there that didn't have the same political view, that might feel alienated and might say, hey, I don't belong here right now, and might get less out of the retreat and less out of the practice because of it. And Jon Kabat-Zinn's son, who co-led the retreat with him, Will Kabat-Zinn, mentioned, kind of jokingly said something about being left-wing, right? And kind of and laughed about it. And I just thought to myself, it's not funny. And so it gave me a lot of material to work with. There was a lot of thinking about thinking about that moment and what I should do, if anything. Should I speak up about what I've experienced? And I, in the end, decided that if there is something to be shared, it's not something to be shared in public, and probably not even to be shared in the retreat at all. That it's something that I should contact him about privately, outside, away from the retreat setting. And I guess the main piece of this sharing has to do with remembering that everyone's human, even people that you put on a pedestal, maybe especially people you put on a pedestal, that not to feel so disappointed when they don't meet your expectations of perfection. And one of my favorite sayings on this was my tea teacher. So the one of the people who I have met, by the way, in person, and I think maybe because I've met him, I haven't put him on a pedestal. He is a great down to earth kind of guy. He says that when he was studying Zen, he just was looking for that master. And he's looking for that person to put on the pedestal, the person to be perfect. And it was his teacher. And he lived at the monastery with his teacher. And, he did a lot of what his teacher wanted him to do, and kind of expected this perfection. And one day his teacher was drunk, which, if you know, is against the Buddhist precepts. And he was asking him to give him more and more alcohol, and was, I think he was mentioning, as his ideal image of his teacher shattered, his teacher saw it, and his teacher said to him, and this, maybe it was a part of the learning, right? He said, I don't know if he was in Taiwan or Nepal or where he was at this time, but the teacher grabbed him by the collar and pulled him close and said, if you want a golden Buddha, go down to the market and buy yourself a golden Buddha. And I always really enjoyed that. So this expecting this kind of perfection. And by the way, I think this also comes in the context of the retreats that I've done have all been here in Asia, and they've all been guided by monks. And a monk and a person living a lay person's lifestyle are different. And I think I expected monastic kind of behavior out of Jon Kabat-Zinn. And Jon Kabat-Zinn was obviously, his ego was definitely there. All of these people saying, John, you're so great. John, you changed my life. And all the notoriety, all of the journals that have been written, the studies that have been done that have cited mindfulness-based stress reduction, the results that meditation have had. Jon Kabat-Zinn is not immune to the fluffing of one's ego, and I don't want to judge him, because I by no means have that kind of have had that kind of fame. Let's just use that word. You have that kind of fame, and don't know or understand how fame can affect the ego. So, okay, it's quite late into our time together, so I'm going to go ahead and begin our meditation, and then of course I'm going to take a look at the chat and interact with what you've written here. So stay tuned, stick around, do the meditation, please, and I'll chat a bit more after we're finished here. So get comfortable. Find your meditation posture. And step one of the meditation is always, for me, checking into my body. So noticing what I feel in my body and possibly even taking a little bit of action around it. So I feel a little bit of tightness in my trapezius muscles. I'm going to roll my shoulders a little bit. Move my head from side to side, just to kind of help encourage a little bit of additional relaxation in those muscles. And then scan through my body, feel the crown of the head, the forehead, the eye sockets, the nose, the nostrils, feeling the air moving through my nostrils as I breathe. The cheeks, my jaw, shoulders. And as I say the word shoulders, I feel my shoulders sink down a little bit. So maybe there's slight tension. See if I can relax the shoulders even a bit more as I feel into them. Noticing the upper back, the lower back, noticing the buttocks in contact with your cushion or chair, using that as an object of meditation, feeling of pressure. You will likely notice that the contact on the left buttock between the chair or cushion and the contact between the right buttock and the chair or cushion is not the same. That pressure is slightly different. The area of contact is slightly different. If you turn up your awareness knob all the way to 11, you'll find those subtle differences. Feeling the legs, contact between the legs and the cushion. Maybe you're sitting on a zabuton like I am. Maybe you're sitting on a chair. Maybe you're sitting on a sofa, feeling where the sofa is in contact with the backs of the legs. Or the feet planted on the floor, noticing the contact between the feet and the floor, the pressure on the feet, pressure profile of each foot. And now I'll invite you to bring your attention to your abdomen. Noticing how it's like there's a little balloon inside of your belly. It's inflating as you breathe in, deflating as you breathe out. Noticing the abdominal muscles. Is the abdomen tight? Or is it relaxed? Can you feel that little balloon inside? an imaginary balloon, expanding and contracting as you breathe. See if you can focus all of your attention on that little balloon. Notice how it's never the same shape at any 2 moments. As long as we let go of our desire to control the breath, the breath always moves. The balloon is always getting a little bit bigger or getting a little bit smaller. So let's see if you can take a few minutes to dwell in the present and know that you are not a perfect meditator and that from time to time your mind will wander away. And when that happens, it's okay. Just gently let go as best you can of whatever thought has come up. And remember, we are doing our best to focus on the present. So that thought, even if it comes back a few seconds later, it's okay. Just welcome it. Know that it's here. And gently, through that process of awareness, you'll find that paying attention to that thought just for a moment is like touching a soap bubble. It just pops, self-liberates. And then you can return your attention paying attention to that little balloon, expanding, contracting, expanding, and contracting. Always expanding and contracting as long as you are alive. You're doing great. Keep it up. Stay focused as best you can on that little balloon expanding and contracting. We're going to meditate for a few more minutes. Congratulations, everyone, for making it through today's practice. I'm going to close our practice with 3 rings of the bell. When the sound of the bell subsides completely, feel free to begin to open your eyes if they were closed, to move around in any way that you like, maybe stretch out, as we transition out of our period of formal practice into the period of the rest of our lives. Thanks so much for practicing with me today. Thanks for being here for each other as well. I'm very grateful for this community. You guys are all awesome. Okay, how did practice go? What came up for you today in practice, and what came up for you as well in the teaching about meeting your hero. Have you had an experience of meeting a hero? What was that like? And I'm just going to go ahead and start reading through the chat. Jean says serendipity. Yeah, that kind of shockingness of that thing that I've been working on to be shared exactly by the person that I admire so much. And by the way, I wish you could have heard him saying those poems, because it just sounded so great. I mean, I like reading those poems, but to hear Jon Kabat-Zinn read those poems was quite awesome. Okay. Lucila says, I'm really shocked that he would change the words a poet wrote. Thank you for sharing your experience, that even our heroes are human beings. Completely agree with you. When I lead a meditation, I try to stick with our awareness of other people's suffering, in the fact that suffering is everywhere in the world, and not spin it down to anything that may send us into the debate narratives. And let me just add, even if those debate narratives are, happening here. Thanks, Lucila, for sharing. Maybe he could have had the retreat in Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I always kind of use that when I'm teaching, is to say kind of that, whatever we do at retreat, because that is, or in MBSR, hey, whatever we do in MBSR stays at MBSR. And I think that's really important, to create that safe container so that everybody can feel safe to share whatever they want. And I do encourage people who come to a meditation class to not do so with someone because it may limit what you're comfortable sharing. It's kind of easier to go in to a group that you don't have any further attachment to, so that when the class is over, whatever you've said in there, it doesn't somehow affect somebody else that you know. Jean says, sounds like if you had spoken to him, you would have given him a lot to think about. And that's it. I feel it's still present enough that I think I'm probably there. I think I'm probably at the point that I'm not emotional about it like I was a week ago, or like a little over a week ago when it happened. That I wanted to make sure to give myself the space so that my response was completely rational, because again, in the space of a silent retreat, if you've ever been on one, that like I mentioned last time, this thing wants to entertain me. And it does so not just through positive things. It goes through a lot of different stuff, and so that's why I try to be. It's one of the reasons to stay in silence, is to be cautious of how our words can harm ourselves and can harm others. So I wanted to make sure there's plenty of space. And in fact, I was very busy yesterday, but I was looking up Will Kabat-Zinn's contact information, and I do plan to contact them about this, and just see what kind of response I get. And again, this isn't, again, in the spirit of compassion, not to go, I'm right, you're wrong, but to potentially reduce the harm done to any future participants that sit on retreats with Jon Kabat-Zinn, and to do so not out of pride by any means, but to do so to come towards Jon and Will as their student, and to come with humility, and to do so with politeness, to write so that I have plenty of space to think about how my thoughts will, how to write my thoughts so they will be received in the most positive way. Lots of potential learning here, including for us. It doesn't diminish his achievement for me, and it doesn't diminish his achievement for me either. All it did was go, hey, this person that I've put up here on this pedestal that I've thought is like this, that I didn't even know I was thinking those thoughts, right? I know Jon Kabat-Zinn's human. I didn't know that I had the unrealistic, inhuman expectations for him. And, I think part of it too is I've done enough retreats with monks that, monks they're training this every single day, and they don't have other world, outside things to distract them, right? They don't have family. They don't have huge achievements. They don't have books that they've written that thousands of people have purchased, right? So I just hadn't viewed Jon Kabat-Zinn in the lens of all of his achievements and how that inevitably affects a person, and it has not diminished my the learning that I could get from him or the respect that I have for him. And Dirk says, you don't need to agree with your teacher all the time, Ryan. Thanks, Dirk. Thanks for saying that. J.E. says, sorry, I got in late, and I'm curious to know what it is that Jon Kabat-Zinn said that you're talking about. It was mostly sharing his political views in a space that I thought that sharing political views could alienate some people who were in the retreat. And yes, thanks, Gene, for saying that. I do post recordings of all of these live events that I do. I post them. My username is Ryan Grimes Mindful, or Ryan Grimes Mindfulness, I believe, on that platform. So you can always find it there if you've missed anything that I've said here in these live events. I try to make sure that that's available so that, there's no FOMO, right? I think FOMO and meditation don't go together. So, the present moment and what's happening right now, I did struggle with sharing recordings because it's really, this is happening right now and this is the thing right now. So, I like to have it be present, but at the same time, I also worried about my participants going, oh, I can't make it. I really want to see this event. I really want to do this today, but I can't make it. And so that you don't have to feel that pressure to come be here live. And so that way, although you don't get to interact, at least you get to hear what the topic was. So you can check me out on that platform that has been written here in the chat. Thank you, Gene. Dirk says, you are my teacher, and I do not always agree with what you say. Are you sure? You sure you don't agree with everything I say? I think what I say is right almost all of the time. But even so, you're my teacher. Thank you, Dirk. Thanks so much. I'm grateful for everyone here, says Chris. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Thank you for your kind words. Lucille says, your story made me remember to Privileged Rider's commentator, and my heroes would all be good and kind. A Privileged Writers Conference. Okay. Going to a Privileged Writers Conference as a young writer was what I meant to say. A Privileged Writers Conference, and my heroes would all be good and kind. Thanks, Lucilla, for saying that. Kind of difficult to absorb. Thank you, Caesar. FOMO's fear of missing out. Right. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just I'm sorry for taking for granted that people know abbreviations. I try never to say MBSR all the time. I try to go mindfulness-based stress reduction. Ryan, it's mindfulness-based stress reduction. Not everybody here has come to my live events all the time. Not everybody knows who Jon Kabat-Zinn is. That's how I make this practice welcoming, just like I welcomed Was it what, Irene? Here in the beginning? Yes. Thanks. You're right. I welcome all of you who are here for your first time. And I try to remember not to use words that, right? See, this is perfect. This goes right back to what I was saying about Jon Kabat-Zinn, right? Not to use words that make you feel excluded in any way, right? Not to say, hey, this is the MBSR community. You know, if you don't know what MBSR means, then hey, you're not part of the team, man. So try not to do that stuff. Try to make it so that everybody, no matter if it's your first time or you've joined, several hundred times, that you are welcome and that this practice is for you and that mindfulness is beneficial for everyone because of the plethora of benefit that we can get from the self-awareness that is cultivated through our mindfulness practice. Thanks, Chris, for saying that. I will be on holiday next week. It is school holidays, so I get to go to Universal Studios in Japan to my son's a Harry Potter fan. So there's, go to Harry Potter Land, go to Super Mario Land. I don't know if that's how, I'm excited for both of those things. So looking forward to it. And I will be back next week, the following week. I've already scheduled the first live event just so that you know when it is. It's going to be a debriefing Inside Out 2. I think that there's some really cool little things that happened, especially at the end of that movie. Talking about embracing our emotions for whatever they are and recognizing that our emotions, including anxiety, have a place in our human experience just spoilers that anxiety exists to protect you. No matter what your relationship with anxiety is, your anxiety's intention is to keep you protected. So as much as we may hate our anxiety sometimes, know that it's there for a good reason. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope you have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. And Frank does too. Frank hopes you have a good day wherever you are. And I'll see you next week. Have a lovely week. Please do join Ryan's Daily Mindfulness Circle and Insight Timer groups if you'd like to continue meditating every day with the wonderful group of people and community that's here. I hope you will join. And and Jean, I just want to say I haven't forgotten about you. I've just had busy family stuff going on. I will be, and I guess this is to everyone, I will be recording new tracks with the intent of the new recordings to be everybody who's meditating every day. So you've got a little bit more variety of the tracks that you're meditating to. You don't end up meditating to the same few tracks all the time. So what Hogwarts house is my son in? Good question. He's like Harry Potter. He's split between Gryffindor and Slytherin. I know he likes both of those houses. So I don't know. Probably one or the other. Let's close practice the way that we do, with some well wishes to ourselves and to everybody else here. And to everybody around the world, of course. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever you happen to be, I wish you all happiness and peace. And may all sentient life around the universe, including those who have not yet been born, I wish everyone everywhere happiness and peace. Thanks again. Have a lovely day or evening. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.